Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited today. The conversation that we're going to have with a Mr. Rashad Woods, who is the founder of Tron Podcast.
Yes, sir.
So I've got an expert on my hands here in podcasting. So with that, Rashad, if you would give us a little bit of background on Rashad Woods and
Mhm.
what brought you to where you are today.
Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. So I'm the guy, I've said this numerous times, that will either intrigue you or bore you to death, right? Because I always know random facts, anecdotes. I'll bring up obscure things in middle of conversations, and I just kind of just know, stuff. I'll keep it PG. And so then it leads to I always wanted to have my curiosity kind of manifested. So for people who are wondering what Tron stands for, it's the randomness of nothing. So my show dives into the backgrounds of entrepreneurs, business owners, creatives. How did you how the heck did you make what you made? Where did you think of that idea and how did it become successful for you? So it really just always was a topic of curiosity of how things operated and functioned.
Perfect. What is your background that is relevant to what you're doing now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I went to a college graduate, went to Michigan State. I've had the opportunity to learn and be in different places in life. And so really I had an encyclopedia set as a kid in my bedroom. Right. And so when I had that encyclopedia set, it's funny, you play sports, but on the side, you're talking about something you read and your teammates looking at you like, dude, what the heck is wrong with you? Like, why are you talking about this? Right. So, but I watch documentaries in my free time. In the 90s, it wasn't necessarily great to be a nerd, but now in the 2000s, like, okay, like you guys are playing catch up to me. So it really was just always curious about how things worked and functioned. And then you get older and you're like, you know what? Shot in the dark. I'm going to see where this goes.
That kind of plays into the first question I was going to ask you, the origin of your vision. So when you first started Tron, what was the gap you were seeing in media or culture that made you say this needs to exist? Like, was there a specific moment that
Yeah.
crystallized that vision for you?
You're sitting there watching Discovery Channel or you watch food, how America was made or how this was built, or you'll look at, food in America, right? And you'll see like they do like the reenactments of how like Hershey's or how like Pepsi or Coke got made. And you could watch that for like 3 hours, man. And you're just like, and it was that person that just was stubborn, and just stuck in the room, got every door shut, but kept plowing ahead until finally something good came out of it, right? And so,
Eh,
there's lots of places that people can go for, I would say, topics that make you upset or get you charged up about whatever topic. And I said, I would rather go about success and curiosity, right? Because those are
Yeah.
universal. I'm not a flamethrower. I have no intention of making people mad or, you know, poking the bear of what they believe in.
Hmm.
That does nothing for me, right? I want to know Rick, how the heck did you get involved in artificial intelligence, right? Like
Right.
that's what's fascinating to me, right? So that's really the core of my beliefs.
Yeah. Cool. Uh, so as far as owning the narrative, one of the themes that kept coming up in your work is narrative ownership,
Mhm.
not just telling stories, but shaping how they're told.
Mhm.
How are you thinking about narrative control in today's media environment, especially when platforms reward speed over depth?
It's funny because one time I saw an interview with like Denzel Washington. He was talking to a reporter. He's like, people want to be first, but they don't necessarily want to be accurate, right? It's all about being first, right? And so for me, it was like, if I can carve out a lane where your story is the authentic story being told, not the interpretation of a reporter, not the interpretation of somebody with an agenda, but actually like, you were there when you were by yourself creating this item and you had a team or you had a vision, I think that's a narrative control that can take place. And then honestly, when I talk to my guests, I let them talk. So I always have like a little ticker in the back of my brain. Like if I've talked more than 30 seconds, that's a bad thing. I need to let them talk. Right. And that's
Mhm.
realistically, it's the truth. And it's hard.
Right.
Listening is hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you know that your audience, you got them on there so that you can hear them
Yeah.
necessarily hear yourself talk.
Oh, no question. Without question. Yeah, I'll cringe at some of the previous ones that I've done. I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, what the heck were you going on a left field for this one? So
Yeah, right, right, right. From content to platform, a lot of people start podcasts, very few build platforms. When did you shift from I'm launching a show to I'm building an ecosystem, and what changed operationally or strategically when that mindset flipped?
at first you're just happy to get a guest, right? And so it's like kindergarten. You're just happy that a kid talked to you, right? So the next step is, and then after you get past that initial shyness and you didn't do horrible, and then they tell you after the camera, like, that was really good. And you're like, oh, thank God. You just start breathing, right? And then, then next thing you know, like other people start messaging you, and then you go on LinkedIn, and then they start asking to be on your show. So it's a trap because you can never let your ego take over at that moment, right? You can never sit back
Mhm.
and say, I got 155 shows, called Watch Out, Joe Rogan, Rashad's down, nipping at your heels, so to speak. Like, what are you talking about? So at every single moment, you have to be prepared, you have to be respectful, and you have to be, you can be dead dog tired, but you can't show that, you know.
Mm,
So I think it's important that, if you don't have a topic of interest, just don't do it. Right. But
mhm,
once you
mhm.
decide to have that guest on, you have to be, at your best. Your local reporter, who's doing 5 a.m. can't look like they got 2 hours of sleep.
Right,
you
right.
know so that's the same philosophy I think applies to the show, and I think that's been kind of my core of growing it, so to speak.
Sure. So building culture through conversations, what's been most surprising about the impact of long form conversation? Have there been moments where you realized this is landing differently than typical media?
Yeah, yeah. I think that because everything everything wants to go viral, everybody wants to do something outlandish to get attention, right? Whether it's a prank, whether it's something rude. And I think when people like, hey man, just tell me your story. Just tell me what you made. I'm coming from a pure place. I'm not asking you for anything. I saw that, like, hey, you did a really fascinating product. And I would really like, maybe you use it and then you go like, let me go to the website and say, hey, can I get a member of your team to talk about what this really cool thing that I utilize in my house? Usually, for the most part, people are going to at least say, tell me more. Right. So,
Right.
and in this era of, digital and availability and access, companies that may have been on the fence of wanting to do social media or podcasts now have to kind of do it, right? The demographics are changing, and even the older demographics are using, these platforms. And then the other thing is too, your competition can get a leg up from having a really cool video.
Yep. Yep. Nope. Very good point. Audience versus community.
Yeah.
On your site and content, there's a sense that you're not just building listeners, you're building community. How intentional are you about designing for community versus just pure audience growth? And what signals tell you you're doing that well?
Well, it's funny because we're actually in the process of creating a school community, SKOOL, as well as creating another website, which is going to give a community-based situation around some of the listeners to give them some tidbits on this insight of success that they've been listening to. Because you do want to make sure that if there is information they want to seek off of an episode, that there's other access and availability. So I have some really cool things that are coming along where it's going to say, listen, these are the antidotes of success. Here's the affiliates and partners that I've interviewed. Here's some of the services that they provide and offer. And here's going to be a community where you can talk to people who like the show, that are in that creative and entrepreneurial space, that want to be bigger. What I'd like to see the show do is start having like some sort of conferences or TED Talks, so to speak, where people can come and hear these inspirational stories. People can showcase their products that they offer, because I think the audience would be receptive to seeing these people in real time.
Founder evolution. As a founder, how has building Tron changed you? And what skills or traits have you had to develop that you didn't anticipate at the start?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. The first is that it's made you more aware of the world around you. I always call the model, if you can get zip coded in life, which means that everything
Mm,
around you can be everything that exists, right? And it's really easy to think that that's the entire world because that's what you know. And then when you
Right.
talk to somebody from Texas, from Florida, from UK to where else have I talked to Italy, you start getting my echo chamber is really like limited in scope, right?
Mm,
And then the third, the personal growth was like you start to realize that there's more out there for you if you're willing to pursue it. If you are
mhm,
willing to ask questions, if you come from a pure and polite place, you'll find out that there are multitudes of things of success that don't display themselves in commercials or billboards. There's $1 million company literally in that little suite that you drive past every single day. The nondescript office complex that you're not even thinking of. And you're like, yeah, that's $1 million business with customers worldwide. You're like, seriously? Really? And you have no clue.
right. No, I've seen that in the kind of the short stint I've been doing this and some of the conversations I've had. I just like, really? I would have never thought of that. I
Nope.
mean, this is something totally outside of, like you said, the bubble that I live
And,
in.
and if you don't ask, you'll never know.
Right, right. If you don't put yourself out there to
Yeah.
talk to other people, it's a small world, but it's a big world. And if you don't get out there and talk to other people about what they have going on, which I think
Mhm.
is one of the really great things about what you're doing here, is
Appreciate it.
is just a platform where people could just come in and see what's going on around the world outside of their bubble.
I always equate it to, like it's like watching TV shows, and every year there's always like a police procedure, and it's always in New York or LA. And then like Tulsa King comes out, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's actually people that live outside of these two major cities, right? And then and so like what you're saying is like there are people who exist in other places that do other things that don't work at the Fortune 500 company or aren't. It's like the perfect example is like the biggest movie star in the world is not an American actor. It's somebody in India or or China right just
Right,
by definition of population, right?
right, right,
If you were to ask the average person like who's the biggest movie star in the world, they'd be like, oh, Leonardo DiCaprio. But if they're like, no, he's probably swamped by somebody that has a country of 2 billion people overseas.
yep, yep. No, that's you're expanding minds is I think one way to look at what you're doing here. And I think that's especially in today's world where we kind of tend to get segregated into certain categories and
Yep.
certain mindsets. This is one way to reach out and open things up for everybody.
It's funny because nobody asks what movies people like, right? And they'll be because you like a good movie. But then for some reason, if you like a different taste of music, all of a sudden, you may get looked at funny, right? Like, why shouldn't you like, and I have no idea what you listen to, but why shouldn't you like a Lady Gaga song, right? Or a Katy Perry song, right? Or if,
Mhm.
I listen to a ton of grunge. I love Alice in Chains. I love Soundgarden. I love Pearl Jam and Nirvana. I mean, like, you'd have to be like the most a hater, I'll call it that, to say, man, that's not talent, right? And I'll
Right.
bump it, right? I've been, so, but why shouldn't I like that?
Mhm.
Nobody questions anybody's music taste. Nobody questions anybody, or like, oh, I didn't know you eat that. I didn't know you listen to that. Well, you don't know me. Like, that's okay, but that I like what I like. And
Mm.
that's where people have to start getting accustomed to these conversations. I don't want to piss anybody off. I don't have any intention of making people mad, man. I'm not bringing that
Mm.
into my orbit, right?
Right. Right. No, and I think that's another great thing about what you got going on is that no negativity allowed
No,
in your podcast.
no, no. I subscribe to the theory of I'm never going to crash into anything I don't allow in my airspace.
Absolutely.
This is straight up truth, man. Like I'll never ask the two following questions: what God you do or do not worship, and what you checked at the ballot box. Because I have,
Hmm.
I mean, come on, man. Like you can see like the facial expression of somebody change. If you come up here and you want to talk about your business, you want to talk about your success story, or you want to talk about what you created, why in the world would I come in there and say, what do you believe in? And, like I'm bum rushing you. I came in there with bad intentions. Right.
Yep.
I did.
Yep.
I came in bad faith, and that's not how I'm
Yep.
gonna operate.
Yep. Kind of along the theme of reaching outside your bubble and getting a taste and getting exposure to people who are doing different things outside of what your bubble is.
Oh, no question.
Um, but at the same time, there's also that aspect of how similar we are.
Without question.
We might try and highlight the differences, but it can be amazing.
And absolutely. And the thing is about it, you'll find out from these successful people is that they can dive into another industry. Like the really successful people, they say you see if you watch like a Shark Tank, they don't need to know about scrubbing bubbles versus so I make chair and furniture versus I make headphones. They know process now.
Hmm.
They know process. They know cost. They know measurables. They know most viable products. They could be completely foreign to what you're creating, but they know a viable product and something that could be available. They'll still do their homework, but they'll be like, this can be viable and there's a segment for it. So by not limiting your skill set, as long as you can check the boxes on a couple of things, you can sell. Those guys can sell a cell phone. They could sell, furniture. They could sell computers because they know process and efficiencies. And then you have to sell yourself as a person on top of that.
Let's see, strategic bets. Looking short to midterm, what, where are you placing your biggest strategic bets? Is it distribution, partnerships,
Yeah,
new formats, monetization, evolution?
all of it.
What are you focused on getting right immediately?
I would say before you chew the elephant, try to take it on all at once. My first goal was to be a good host and to get guests. Now my second guess was to get a good following and to get people that want to be on the show. Now the third stool is correct monetization, partnerships, and sponsorships. And then it now becomes not just having people interviewed, but I want to get at their locations and say, listen, show me how this was made and let's kind of give like a documentary or a walkthrough kind of a feel. Let's say if you're making like, if you are creating a new, you know, dermatology level soap to help people's skin. Hey man, I'm not here to expose your secret to Coca-Cola here, but give a general overview of the factory that makes this and let's walk through this, right? Because I think competition is fierce. Things are easily duplicated. And this is my personal opinion, I could be totally wrong. Don't think that whatever you're thinking of ain't thought of already. Right. It's just the straight up truth, right? There's a million and one
Absolutely.
podcast hosts, there's a million and one, glass bottle makers, and competition is ultimately a good and a bad thing because you can either imitate or you can innovate, right? And that's the
Hmm.
truth. So for me, my personal show, my goal of this year is to evolve the show into a more media environment.
So I think it's very interesting in the concept of there's a lot of neat things getting developed, but not an easy channel for that to become known.
That's really what is right. That's what I'm trying to get to. Once you got past the conception stage and you're like, hey, we're in this market, we're doing okay. I'd like for people to come on here, or maybe it is doing well and you want to expand and say, listen, let's showcase this, in a way that's going to highlight the pluses of your show, right? So we can, your product, excuse me, and say, listen, to your point, I'm trying to bring this to market. I want to get on the Randomness of Nothing podcast because I've done well in this segment, but I want to expand and maybe and monetize it in a way through my show, through my distribution, and through, non bum rushing you that this can make your product more visible.
How can you reach these people?
Yeah, I mean, I look up, startup companies, I look up established companies, and then I just try to reach out to their media teams, right? Some of them reach out to me,
Sure.
and so I really do believe that since we've gotten in this new era of social media, they have teams and people that they've got on board that are more open than they were in the past, right? And I think that with also obviously with products like Zoom and other services, it doesn't have to be in person, right? You can get creative with your crew, but I would love to have their teams, say, listen, I want you to come out here and showcase our product because you have, this amount of followers and this amount of views, and I feel comfortable
Mhm.
talking to you.
Yeah. So, advice for builders,
Uh,
for founders or creators who feel called to build something meaningful, not just viral, what's one mindset shift that you think is critical?
You better love it and it better be authentic, right? Those are the two. Because I promise, that if you're looking to get the 5 million views just because you want to make a quick buck. There's a place for that, in that segment of people, and there's been successful people. Having said all that, if you want to have continual growth and volume, you have to truly pick a topic you're passionate about, right? That you can see yourself doing every day. It is not easy getting behind this microphone and having discussions on a day by day basis.
Mm.
You know, and not let your emotion, your personal beliefs, your personal feelings seep into what you're trying to accomplish. And so I would tell somebody who's trying to get into this space, most podcasts fail after 20 episodes because people realize how difficult it is. I'm at 156, 57 that have been out, and I have more that are going to come out because I truly love doing this.
Hmm. And that shows through, doesn't it? I mean,
Yes.
when you're speaking with guests, if they know that you're excited about it, that opens them up to be more forthcoming
Without question.
and to be more conversational and willing to share some things that they might not otherwise share.
I would say that, they don't know me from Peter or Paul, and all they'll know is the video they saw about me having a show. And in that 20-second, people got to understand, you got like 5 seconds now to draw somebody's attention. Like, it is that fast. I mean, how many times you clicked off something that didn't load, or, oh man, that was a crappy intro, right? Look at how many streaming services you have at your disposal on your television, right? Or on your phone.
Yeah.
You're like, no, it's on to the next one, right?
Yep.
So you better give people a reason to click.
Yep. Yep. Perfect. That's all the questions I got for you. That is I love this, Rashad. This
Yeah,
and I mean I love what you're doing. I think this is very unique
appreciate it.
from what I can see. I'm going to continue to follow you. I want to watch the Tron train
I appreciate
chugging
that.
along.
It's anybody, and I'll tell anybody who listen, is that the process has been democratized. So you don't need the fanciest camera. You don't need the fanciest piece of equipment. You literally need, and it can't be up here. It's got to be here. And, I'm pointing to my chest. And if you have something you're passionate about and you find the right people to talk to, good things can happen.
Is there anything else you want to throw at us here, Rashad, before we take off? Any plug that you want to throw or
I'll do shameless self-promotion. The Tron Podcast is T.R.O.N podcast.com. It's found on all major platforms. It's for the randomness of nothing. It manifests curiosity. And if you're interested in being a guest on the show to showcase your product, your journey, and your success, I would love to have you as a guest.
perfect? Thank you, Rashad. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you, Rick.
Have a
It's been an honor.
wonderful rest of the week.
You too. It's been an honor and pleasure.
You bet. Thank you.
Bye.